All right. We'll do this. Let's see. Oh, Barbara, you're here.
Hi.
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 How nice to see
I
you.
see Leslie. Hi, Leslie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Glad to be here. Hi, Eric.
Okay. All right. Just making sure everybody got in. Okay.
We have a good crowd.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get started. I'm doing like 12 things with my screen. Okay. Okay.
All right, I'll start with the bios.
Here we go. I want to welcome everyone to Virginia Voices with co-host Cathy Hailey, VP of the Northern Region of PSV, and myself, VP of the Western Region. As many of you know, Poetry Society of Virginia has launched its centennial celebration, which will culminate in our annual statewide festival in May of 2023. The Centennial Committee settled on a theme for our year-long celebration, Virginia Voices 100 Years and Beyond. And Cathy and I started the series in order to get to know our members better by hearing their poetry, finding out what they enjoy about PSV and what their hopes are for it as our community moves into its next century. On the second Wednesday of every month from May 2022 until May 2023, and possibly beyond, we will gather to ask our guests the same three questions. No doubt this will be an adventure, and it has been an adventure, as we've heard some similar answers, some we haven't thought of yet. I've been inspired, challenged, and I've been reminded of why we come together in a poetry community to begin with. Both Bill Glows and Kathleen Decker have been generous enough to post recordings of the episodes on their PSV YouTube channels. So if you can't make it, you can watch it. And it's always great if you're willing to share it with others too. So it just helps our community grow a little bigger. And so I think I'll say really quickly that we are going to continue with Virginia Voices beyond May 2023. I'm hog farming, so I will not be here anymore because I am knee deep in hog and chicken poop all the time. And so I can't quite give it the attention that it needs. But Steve Booker is someone who has been with us and was a wonderful guest, and he's going to do a masterful job, and he'll be working with Cathy Hailey to continue it. And I'm excited to see how they're going to do it, what format they're going to take. They're still talking about it, I think, but it's going to be phenomenal to see what they do. And I'm really excited that it's going to continue. And I hope y'all are here for that. So more later. Steve will actually be the host this May. So you'll get a taste of his ability to handle guests because Cathy and I will be his guest. Okay, enough of that. So today I want to welcome Denise Wilcox and Kelly Sue White, and Cathy is posting their bios in the chat. I've just got to fix one thing real quick. Let's see. Okay. But I had something that I would rather say about Kelly Sue than her bio, although her bio is impressive. I was fortunate enough to go to Randolph with her. We were both in an MFA together, and she was one of the highlights for me. We had the same mentor one semester, and we studied together. And she is encouraging, she is supportive, and she is gifted. And she is always pushing boundaries of poetry. And I can't wait to hear what she has to say today about her approach to poetry, about her thoughts about PSV, about what she can envision for the future. And even more than that, I'm really looking forward to the poems that she's going to share. So with that being said, Kelly Sue, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you open us up with a poem?
Yes, thank you so much for those generous words, Angie. Thanks for putting the pressure on me. All right. This is called Daylighting the Stream. I said I wanted to write past the mess, into the fallow wake, and today he signed hospice papers. God, this isn't what I meant. On the corner of Della and Pemberton, persimmons jewel bare fingers. Light beer cans rust in culverts of rain runoff, and a heron ankle deep in oil slick sheen slinkies its neck. Plastic bags, Spanish moss the mulberry bushes. What makes the water foam between the sand and dead Christmas tree? Abundance, a murder of crows, fists full of found feathers on the bank of no-name creek. I jar them like lightning bugs, like sand worked by water, like gumballs, bushels full, dumped over the yard the dogs killed. Almost trees spring up from roots the ground betrays. I have a bottle full of Ohio River on the windowsill. Kids, I have these babies that grew into tweens with freckles on their noses. Cinnamon sugar sprinkled on skin. I grew them in my belly. Their belly buttons I made. Those noses in my belly. Father, your forgiveness leaves me sunblind from sky on water.
You did not
Thank you.
disappoint. You did not disappoint at all. And that's a poem that I could read again and again and again, and that you would need to read again and again and again to fully sit with all the twists and the turns that you did. It was so easy to get lost in your sounds. And as someone who watched you, who like read you when you first came into the program and is hearing you now, what? That just blew me away. And the way you started, what you started with the hospice, with the father, and going through all of these places, and I could hear your line breaks. I feel like it. I feel like I could hear your line breaks and the way things were working double time, and the jar of Ohio and the Kelly Sue. Okay, beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll do this anytime you ask, Angie.
Okay. Denise, I was hoping, so let me introduce Denise. And so I do not know Denise as well as I know Kelly Sue, but this is what I'm so looking forward to today, because she is a poet of community. Like, I have looked out into Zoom and seen Denise show up and show up and show up and show up. And that's critical, right? That we show up for each other. And I was talking to Catherine Hankless. She's a Virginia poet. She's a Roanoke, Virginia poet. She's extraordinary. And she shows up. I mean, she showed up for our region. She shows up all of the time. And I was talking to her and I was like, I haven't been writing because I'm kind of tired and I feel like I can't show up as much. And we were talking about this, and she was like, well, you know, you give so much, and and then you can receive a little Angela. So you need like a Fitbit that tells you when you can sit back and receive. So keep writing. But Denise, you are the kind of poet I think of when I think about a poet who shows up. And you didn't show up to be a guest. You didn't show up to be heard. You showed up to listen. And I just want to thank you for how you've done that month after month after month. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your poem. Now.
Thank you. And thank you, Cathy and Angie, because this has just been an incredible experience. I am thrilled to hear that it's going to continue. And I want you to show up. It means a lot to me. So the first poem that I'm going to read is called My Father's War. It's going to be published in the PSV Centennial Anthology this summer. My father didn't speak of his service during the war. He stuffed the horrors deep inside and sucked the air out like a vacuum-sealed freezer bag. Decades later, the seal broke and stories leaked out. The memory of his fingertips touching as he wrapped them around a fellow soldier's upper arm, thinned to the bone from starvation at Bataan. The memory of his feet ripped to shreds by coral as he ran helter-skelter to escape enemy strafing on an island outpost. The memory of his little brother who pulled the short straw that appointed him the one to knife an enemy to death in a dark tunnel on Iwo Jima. My father plugged the leaks. He plugged them with speed, uncertain how they escaped. The stories died, but the memories live.
Well, y'all are, I don't know, y'all are rendering me speechless. I'm going to have a hard time keeping up with y'all and the power of your work and honoring your work in the way it deserves to be. Denise, thank you for sharing that. And thank you. The memories live, but it's your writing and your poetry and your willingness to record, and that will keep this alive. And then that's so valuable. And what a gift that is to everyone. Your poem also, like, I wanted to have it with me so I could go back through it, because Cathy wrote in the chat, Kelly Sue, when you were reading, that she was so spellbound she couldn't write in the chat. And that's how I felt with both of you reading. I just can't even imagine like what's going to come in this hour and how it's going to sit with me, for days. Thank you. So I'll quit talking so much. But so Denise, will you please share with us why you joined PSV and what it's been for you?
Well, thank you for that opportunity. When I retired from teaching, I taught children in grades K through 6. I knew that I wanted to focus on my writing, and I joined a writers group in Warrenton that was started by Sue Gabay. And Sue and I went to SCBWI, that's Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators conference in the fall of 2016. And when I was dropping Sue off, just before she got out of the car, she said, I'm going to challenge myself to write a poem a day. And I said, wow, I'll accept the challenge with you. And she and I have been exchanging a poem a day for almost every day this many years. And in 2018, Sue discovered Poetry Society of Virginia. We'd been writing poetry for a couple of years back and forth and didn't know about the society. And we both became members in 2018. And I think the part that matters the most to me about PSV is the sense of community. My first experience with that was when we did the crowdsourced poem that Louisa Igloria started. And I just loved reading so many different perspectives with us, you know, like there were 4 prompts and it was just incredible. There were hundreds of responses. And I especially liked hearing the ones from the school children, the middle schoolers and high schoolers. And then Kathleen Decker, who's a vice president also, is also a quilter. And I took up quilting in my retirement too. And she decided to do an ekphrastic collection of poetry connecting quilts and poems. I don't know if any of you have seen a copy of Quilted Poems. That's the title of the book. And she did it in reverse. Usually ekphrastic poetry is written, you see a piece of art and then you write a poem about it. But she asked poets to write a poem that someone could create a quilt for. And then she gave us the opportunity, at the 2 different quilt shows, they presented the quilts with our poems next to them and gave us the opportunity to read our poetry at the quilt shows, which was really exciting. I wouldn't have had that opportunity if it weren't for PSV. And another one that really mattered too is this Virginia Voices. I mean, I think I had my little community, Sue and I exchanging poems back and forth, and you know, I write for my grandchildren, I write for my friends, that kind of thing. But to have a community of poets gathered together once a month to hear each other's poetry, to have the opportunity to look people up. Like I didn't know Kelly Sue, but when I looked her up online, I read an amazing poem that she had written about a river. And it just means a lot to me to have this connection. And I feel like I now know other poets that I could contact about, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So the Virginia Voices has been a really big part of the PSV for me.
Yay, then it worked.
It worked, absolutely.
I'm really glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that. It's been like that for me too. You know, I didn't really know any of the people I know now that were in PSV until we started this, and it has definitely made my world bigger, my poetry world a lot bigger. Kelly Sue, how about you?
You know, I didn't know anything about Poetry Society. I was on Facebook and saw that you were hosting something, and it was for Poetry Society of Virginia. So it was like a double gift, right? Like I get to support Angie and hang out with her, and also find out like what the heck this thing is, Poetry Society of Virginia. And, you know, I think the thing that drew me in, just like Denise said, was the sense of community. Like after that first I don't know if it was the first one that you had or not, but the conversation was so supportive and intellectually vibrant, not placating or congratulating or like trying to zhuzh up someone's ego. And I thought, you know, I really want to be a part of this. It's such a wonderful break for me in the middle of my life. Like I'm knee deep in parenting and momming, and to have this like 1 hour Zoom that in the middle of my life, I can log on and I can have this community talk about poetry and all the things that fill me up. It really buoys me, and that's what made me want to join. You know, my last semester, my mentor said to me, he said, look, you've done a lot of work and MFAs are definitely about that, but it's about the point of this kind of MFA is to get you to find your community and the people with whom you're in conversation with, so that you can continue to grow and take your life forward the way that it needs to go, your life and your work. And that's what this has done. It's meant so much to me to have this this specific one, this March one, like 2 months after my graduation, you know, it really helped mitigate the post-graduation blues, you know, like, oh yeah, life really does continue after school, and it really can continue to be about poetry and writing. I don't know. I'm very, very grateful.
Thank you. And I was so surprised to see you on here. I thought you were already a member. I didn't know it worked the other way around. I was like,
I don't have time. I'm a mom. I'm doing laundry.
and Carrie Barber is at Randolph too. And I would not have known that had I not been doing Virginia Voices. And so now I have another Randolph peer I've got to reach out to and talk to, and what a small world, but it's so big that if we didn't have things like PSV and have events and have ways to connect through PSV, we wouldn't know each other. Although there's so many of these connections. We were talking about connections earlier, Cathy, and how intertwined. I just made up a word. Poets can do that. But yeah, everything is. I love both of y'all's answers. I don't know that I've heard those answers yet. That was really exciting. Okay, I got to keep moving. So we want to go on and ask about your personal approach to poetry. And I'm really excited to hear this. Denise, what commitment you have to write a poem a day for, like, did you say 2016 is when you started? Yeah. I got you muted. Can you unmute, Denise? Shoot. Denise, I got to get you to unmute so I can hear you. Oh, you're trying. Is that what you're? Let's see. Shoot.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Is that what you said?
It has been a commitment.
Yeah. So tell us about your personal approach to poetry. I'm wondering if part of it is that daily devotion.
You know, it is for me. I have Sue, and we exchange a poem a day. I wake up in the morning looking for a poem. And one of my favorite poets is Mary Oliver. And she has a quote. She says, "The soul exists and is built entirely out of attentiveness." And so all day long during my day, I'm looking for a poem, and they surprise me in all kinds of ways. The other day, I was in my sewing room looking out my window to the backyard, and a huge oak leaf had fallen into the bird bath. And there was my poem. It started right then. So they kind of come from, a poem can hit me in the kitchen when I'm making my grandmother's pizza, or it's just looking for a poem every day. And sometimes they're very short poems. Sometimes it's a haiku. Frequently it's a haiku. But I've embraced Billy Collins's small poems. I love his newest book, Magical Tables. And then some are longer. It just depends on the subject. Sometimes I'll think I'm starting a haiku, and then all of a sudden it becomes a page-long poem. So it's that's meant a lot to me to have Sue's participation with me to do this, her commitment too. And I started loving poetry when I was a junior in high school. My English teacher just was incredible. And I did a term paper on Edna St. Vincent Millay. And after that, I wanted so much just to include poetry in everything that I did. So when I was in college and I had to write a book, a children's book for Kitty Lit, I wrote a book of poetry. And when I was teaching, I had a poetry corner every time in every classroom. And my students would take turns being in the poetry corner, reading all kinds of poems. I read poetry to my students every day, read poetry to my own children. My children read poetry to me. They gave me poetry books for Mother's Day, and then they would delight me with reading to me. So it's been an ongoing part of my life. Poetry has since, well, for decades. And you know, when I travel, my husband and I have traveled a lot, mostly to national parks. That's our favorite place to go. And I do a trip journal with watercolor and notes about the day. And I even continue with my poetry when I'm in the parks, writing a poem a day there too. So it captures a moment and to relive it. Yeah, and that's very meaningful to me. I keep paper and pen all over the house, next to the bed at night, in my purse, in my backpack. You know, I just always have some place to jot down. Might just be a phrase or something that captures me and then grows into a poem later.
So you have to look in the chat because I think you've made a lot of friends. People are like, poetry habit is daily too, and I keep a trip journal too, and I love park poetry, and like it's really the enthusiasm that you're generating just by sharing your approach. But that's not really what I wanted to say. I was listening to you, and I think about this a lot with poets because it is tireless. Like poetry is a lifestyle. Like, and
I agree.
Yeah, I hear that in what you're saying. I personally push back against it. I fight it, but I fight everything. I'm a fighter. But that's the poets I admire, and you are one of them. It's a lifestyle, and it just interweaves itself. And I'm in awe. And like I've been doing Duolingo every day, but I'm thinking I should just switch to poetry every day and do a poem a day. I feel really challenged by you to.
Well, your little piggies are so cute. You could have poems galore from those little piggies and chicks.
I know, but I agree they are the best looking hogs in the world. But I put off the poem. I write them all day long about them, and I put off the poem. And what I'm hearing you say is how critical it is to take those few moments to write that down. And yeah, I feel inspired, but I feel challenged in a good way. Thank you so much for sharing that, Denise. I really appreciate it. Would you follow that up with a poem, and then we'll go to Kelly Sue and hear about? Okay.
I will. My maternal grandparents immigrated from Italy, and I feel a very strong connection with my Italian-American heritage. This poem was published in the 50th anniversary issue of the Patterson Literary Review. It's called Old Italian Proverb. You are what I was, I am what you will be. Mom first gifted me with this old Italian proverb when I was 32 and a new mother. I remember the pure joy radiating from her eyes as she wrapped her arms around me and her grandchild. You are what I was, I am what you will be. With only 3 days of motherhood experience, I didn't get it. After 10 sleepless nights, aching deep into the marrow of my bones, I remembered family stories of my older brother, colicky and up all night after night after night. And in that first year of parenthood, when I had prepared pasta fagioli for the third time in 2 weeks, because we had to buy amoxicillin and beans were cheaper than chicken, I remembered Mom's story about eating a jar of baby food and Daddy stretching a bag of peanuts from lunch into dinner, hanging on until the next paycheck. You are what I was. I am what you will be. I was starting to get it. Summers were for grandma visits, breakfast at her kitchen table, thick slabs of crusty bread, warm milk tinted with coffee, warmer smiles. Why did we go that winter of my 12th year? How did my mom know that her mom would die that week? I remember coming home from school, Mom sitting at our kitchen table, tears tumbling into her ashtray, reassuring me she was fine, just missing her mom. And now these words are carved into my heart. You are what I was. I am what you will be. Moments sneak up behind me, slam me to the ground, remind me I am a motherless daughter. Today, I am grandma, full to the brim with tender toddler kisses, overflowing with joy, watching my daughter cradle her babe. Mom's proverb is ready to be handed down, like recipes and smocked dresses. You are what I was. I am what you will be.
Thank you so much, Denise. I really appreciate that. And I would love that you chose to repeat that proverb throughout the poem, because I needed the opportunity to sit with it again and again. And as you moved through your experience of it in the poem and in your life. Yeah. So Kelly, Sue, I want you, will you start with the poem and then go into your personal approach? Because I want to hear it back to back.
Yeah. Sure. I just want to say that my mommy is on this Zoom, and so I'm really grateful that you read that poem, Denise. Oh, you asked me to read first. Okay, so here's some things. I want to give a little bit of content warning. I'm going to talk about recovery from substance and alcohol abuse. And so if anything surrounding that might not be comfortable for you, I'm going to let you know that you will not offend me if you need to exit this Zoom. Not at all. You will not offend me. So two things that I want to say before I read this one, just to help you understand what's going on. Narcan, I say Narcan, and Narcan is something that revives people. It's an opiate blocker, and it revives people who have overdosed from heroin or fentanyl. Lazarus Stinks, the title, comes from a chat that I heard Beth Macy give at the Library of Virginia, talking about her newest book, Lazarus Rising, or Raising Lazarus, which discusses, side note, she's also from Virginia, in Roanoke. But she talks about the hard work, really hard work, community work that it takes to help someone recover from substance and alcohol abuse. It's not just not using. So this one's kind of short. And so if we have time, I'll read two of them. And if not, I'm not upset. All right. It is called Lazarus Stinks. Unbind the burial shrouds. 3 days behind stone, he said, still had Narcan swabs in his nose. Even Jesus left. His business, strictly miracles, not the work that comes after. Everyone wants to be around Jesus. No one wants to clean up after him. Keep a scrap of cloth and a locket to remember. This is what you asked for. Dog fur in the corner an hour after vacuuming. Dinner, the dull tedium with Jergens dish soap. Crying toddlers, stink bugs like teeth under their pillows. Prayed for Jeep, repossessed.
Whoa, what a last line you took us out on. Okay, read the other one. I'm not going to talk.
Okay. This one is called Sackler at Sheltering Arms. If you don't know, the Sackler family is the one who owns Purdue Pharma that started OxyContin. And Sheltering Arms is a rehabilitation, like physical rehabilitation facility here in Richmond. Sackler at Sheltering Arms. My dad holds a white Dixie cup. 7 years and still siren songs I hear hum num hymns. Organs chord. He cups. I can't. He chews, swallows. I peel pupils. I lose him to white a kiss meant for his cheek. You see it? They're short.
Thank you, Kelly Sue. Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. I think it's I think it's an important part of poetry, that we be vulnerable. And I think there's all kinds of different vulnerabilities. So they don't all have to be, this vulnerable, because this is. I know you took care of everyone else first by saying, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about. But it's a lot. It's a lot for you to let us in and to share that. And that's what you've done in all of your poetry as long as I've known you. Like, I remember working with Layli Long Soldier and the things that you would share and that you were willing to work through with witnesses because it was poetry. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate you sharing those today. So tell us about your personal approach to poetry.
I think you just summed it up, right? I mean, next. My mom always read to us, and Denise, I didn't think about it until you read your poem, but my mom, we had this book. It was beautiful. It's called Poems to Read to the Very Young. And I can still see those pictures, and I would read that
I have
over
that
and
book.
over and over again. Oh, I love it so much. And I wasn't even going to talk about that, but it was a beautiful little memory. And so I was always a reader, always a writer, and pretty private. It always enchanted me. But my relationship with poetry really took off once I stopped drinking. Pretty early in my recovery, I found Gregory Orr's book, Poetry as Survival, and that I was in the middle of some really challenging family stuff, and it resonated really deeply with me. He talked about the way poems make order out of disorder, and not just the writing of it, but even when you find that one poem that can buoy you or make you feel seen or less alone, we just aren't good at doing that as a society. And that book for me really helped me to lean into my writing practice when you get sober, it is. I told my sponsor once, I was like, I can't pray because I just talk to God in my brain, but then I start thinking about what I have to do for the girls, and I just can't, it's not working. And she said, well, you've always liked to write, so why don't you write your prayers instead? And so that started me doing a daily morning written prayer practice, which evolved over time and has become other things. And once I came across Kava Akbar's Portrait of an Alcoholic, I was all in, because there's something about seeing someone. It's the community, it's the witness, it's the less alone, it's the being seen and held. And also, for the first time, I was able to see that this thing that I thought that I wanted, that when I said to people out in the real world, like, I really want to be a writer, I really like writing, and the response is usually, yeah, but what do you really want to do? Like, how are you gonna make a living? Right? For the first time, I could see that not only was it, I mean, I knew it was possible because I saw other people doing it, but for this, it was like, oh, maybe I haven't screwed up my life so much that I can't have the things that I dream about. And it was pivotal for me. And once I had that book and then read Calling a Wolf a Wolf, I was like, I was all in. I think for me, the thing about poetry is that it moved from that like initial act of survival and sobriety, and it moved into the spiritual practice where I stopped trying to make a poem or anything I was writing do the thing I wanted it to do. And instead, I learned how to get out of the way of the thing that was trying to come through me. And that was like a softening or a surrender into what it actually is, and letting that be the thing. And learning how to apply that flow that I found on the page and in my writing to other areas of my life. It, like, poetry for me, it saved my life, you know. And I know that sounds a little woo-woo, and I know that sounds I don't know. I just that's what it did for me, honestly. And I feel like I'm doing a disservice to anybody who might need to hear that if I don't talk about it honestly.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly Sue. It doesn't sound woo-woo. When you say it, it sounds authentic. And it is incredible. It's been incredible to have you and Denise here talking about the way the two of you approach poetry, because it is with such reverence, both of you. It's really powerful, and it's a very powerful reminder, I think, to me. I won't speak for anyone else, but to me, it's a powerful reminder of how to approach poetry. I asked y'all what your personal approach is, but you really given this invitation to the practice of poetry to me. Like, here's how you can approach it. And I'm grateful to both of you. You brought me to my knees. But I shouldn't keep talking because we have more things to do. So I'm gonna get you, Kelly Sue, while you're the one up. If you will share what you would like to see in PSV as we move forward the next 100 years or the next year.
Well, I got my wish because I wanted this to continue. You know, I think that having these Zooms are a way to reach people that can't necessarily, you know, stop their life and go to a poetry reading or a workshop. And I think that I would like to see some workshops and craft talks. Maybe. I think that workshopping poetry with people that you build a respectful agreement with on how to go about sharing your poetry, because it is so vulnerable, and it can be, and the wrong critique can make you lose your desire to write, you know. But that's not what happens here. And I would love to see this conversation move to the page and see what comes out of that. I think that would be beautiful.
Angie, I've got to step away for just a minute. I'll be right.
Okay. So Steve's in the audience and Cathy just heard that. And I think that is really interesting. And how do we make that shift? Like, how can that shift be made? And it is something that I would also like to see, craft talks, but more workshops, more working together. And the Genovese is another person who was on Virginia Voices, Jenna Villaforth Veazey, and she talked about poetry. I'm not going to get the words as good as she did, but is healing, and like, how do you use it for healing, and working with the craft while you're working through healing through poetry. And so you should look her up if you're not already connected with her, and y'all should think about putting on a workshop that is about that and offering it to PSV members. So let me put you on the spot, Kelly Sue. And
No pressure in me, Angie.
Yeah, I'm good at putting pressure on. So Denise, would you answer that question? And then that way we can finish with poetry.
Sure. I would like to see more of the crowdsourced poetry projects, and I'd like to see it extended to the elementary school children, not just middle and high. I had first graders who could write some incredibly insightful poems, and I think that would be exciting. I also would like to see more poetry. I know a lot of teachers wait for April, National Poetry Month, and do, you know, wonderful units on poetry, but I feel poetry should be a part of every day. And if somehow we could connect with the Poetry Society, with the school districts that are associated with poets in the society who would be willing to go into schools and read, that it would be wonderful to have your name on a list of volunteers that, you know, we could go in, just read a couple of poems, or ask children if they, you know, have poems that they'd like to write, do a small workshop with them. That kind of thing be extended. This fall, my husband and I were visiting friends in Michigan, and we were walking down to Lake Michigan, and there was I just stopped in my tracks because there was this little house box. It wasn't very big, and it was about eye level on a pole, like a birdhouse, and it had a poem in it. And I just stopped at the poem, and I thought, wow, this is great. And I thought, you know, there are places where they have those little libraries where people, you know, share different books and things, but wouldn't it be wonderful to have little boxes around, like at state park trails or neighborhood parks, and you could have somebody switch out a poem, and I think it would delight people. I had read in the Washington Post about a park ranger in San Francisco who put out a take a poem, write head that she thought people would enjoy, and she would change the poems out. And then she left a little box underneath that had a slot in it and a drawer that had pencils and paper, and people could write poems and put them in there, and then she would post too. And I thought, I think there's just too many people who think poetry, boo, and we don't want them thinking that. So any way that we could engage and enlarge the community to appreciate poetry, I think would be great. Oh, cool, and a bus. Way to go.
I'm just going to jump in real fast because I love what you said, Denise. And I think the other thing is that the like living poets that are talking about things that are relevant to the kids' lives now instead of like Shakespeare. Right? I think like that's part of the reason if your first introduction when you're little is to like Shakespeare and thy, thou, thee, the, it just doesn't ring relevant, but it is relevant, and it can buoy you and open up ways of interacting with the world that can be really beautiful. So I don't know. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea. And okay. And I wanted to say that I hope y'all can hear me because my screen is frozen. And so I hope your screens are okay. But if you, okay, good. So these ideas are phenomenal, and you can do them, and you can do them through PSV if you want to. And you could start these initiatives. You can work with ones that are already there. Denise, Cathy is the Young Poets in Schools representative for PSV. Talk to her, and she had to step away because her mom fell, and she needed to help her get up. She is okay, but reach out to her after this and go and do that, because we need you to. And if someone wants to, if any of you have these ideas, like doing broadsides across the state, putting them on buses, like reach out to your regional VP, and they should help you navigate connections through PSV and other places to make these initiatives happen. And I think that's how we come alive. Y'all are full of ideas, you're full of energy, and you're full of devotion. And so just step forward and do them. This is perfect. We have just enough time to end the way we came in on poetry. Kelly Sue, will you read for us? And then Denise, will have you close us out.
Sure. My last one is after my mentor, my second semester, Ari Villanueva, and Maya Williams, who was also a mentee with me with Ron. It's called Mine Will Be a Beautiful Service. Lay me on a bed of driftwood tied with kudzu vine. Crown me with river oysters and honeysuckle in the green dress I wore to the Dead show, braless, barefoot. Split me open, clavicle to belly, and give my water nymph heart to someone else. Stuff magnolia blooms in my chest. Find the wildest river, the Colorado flooded, and let me go. At least in death, I'll know what the sky smells like from the bottom of the canyon and the texture of stars on water. Give me that. at least. If this suburban bullshit is my existence in death, give me Grand Canyon vultures to bite my cheeks and carry me into the sky. I want the ghost of the Emerald Mile to meet me in lava falls with all the river rats, the left behinds that didn't make it out alive.
Thank you. Thank you. And the way you read, Kelly Sue, I really enjoyed hearing you read tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation that you've put forward today in so many different ways. Denise, will you close for us?
I will, thank you. Louisa Gloria teamed up with a poet laureate from California and with Dr. Jeremy Hoffman from the Science Museum of Virginia, and put out a call for poems about climate change. They're putting out an anthology called Dear Human at the Edge of Time, and that will be published in the fall of 2023, and this poem will be in that. It's called Breach. When I flew to Alaska and sailed through the clouds, closer to heaven than the landing strip, I whispered a prayer, 3 wishes to Kiotnik, the way of life, a glacier, a whale, a wolf. Let me hear the whiplash crack of a calving glacier and watch a mountain of ice fall into the sea. Let me feel the mist on my cheeks as a humpback whale breaches through churning waves, stretches skyward, then falls backward into the joy of the bay. Let me watch a gray wolf, wild and free, lope across the tundra, soaked in autumn's red and gold, before it is too late, before the sun melts the glaciers, before the water warms too hot for whales, and before wolves fall to extinction. Kiotnik answered my prayers. My body plunged with the glacier into pristine water. My body soared with the whale through the blue. My body mirrored the proud gait of the wolf. Not even poets possess words for the awe of these wonders. The people of Kiotnik, Siberian Yupik, are one with their brothers and sisters of the land, but not so the marauders of the Klondike calamity, the reckless people gashed deep scars into earth, slashed forests, overkilled, rushed to ruin. When my grandchildren seek adventure in Alaska, seek the ineffable wonders of the glacier, the whale, the wolf, when they long to follow the way of life, will Kiotnik have the power to answer their prayers?
Thank you. Thank you both for reminding me, maybe everyone else remembers, but what a spiritual practice poetry is, and how critical devotion and commitment is to it. Thank y'all for what you brought today. I really appreciate it. What wonderful poetry, wonderful philosophies. Like, it's been a really powerful hour. Thank y'all so much. Cathy, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Just that we always find so many connections between the two poets that we don't really know how that's going to work out, ahead of time. And it's just amazing how it does each time we're able to find that.
Absolutely. And I hope y'all will pursue your ideas that you brought up today. I hope you'll make those happen for us all.
And one more thing is that Steve is here. So Steve, Angie mentioned something about our continuation. So if you all want Steve, if you want to say something.
Sure. Thanks, Cathy. Yeah, I am just tickled to death to pick up the ball here and carry on. Angie, I am stepping into footsteps that are way bigger than mine. So I do this with a lot of trepidation, and I will certainly miss hearing you, but I know you will be here to do this with you guys.
Thank you for being willing to do it, Steve.
you.
You're far more articulate than I am, so I'll have to tune in and hear what's happening. Be a guest. It'll be wonderful.
Well, you know, it's not a matter of being willing. It's a matter of it's such a privilege to be asked to do this. I mean, what everybody says, it was said today, and it's said almost every week about what coming together we experience. Remarkable. So.
Thank you, Steve. I'll let everyone go for the evening. Thank you all so much for being here. It was a very moving hour. Thank you, Kelly. So you have a great time in Seattle, and we'll see you again next month.